So, good evening, everybody. This is Kevin Ross, and I am the Pacific Northwest District Chair. If we haven't met yet, thank you so much for volunteering. We are going to sort of go through a debriefing. That's actually an interesting word I just made up. I'm going to copyright that right away. This is a debriefing for the Auburn Mountainview event, and we are going to go over some of the things that we learned during the weekend. I have with us Carrie Denherter and Adrian Rimey, and Susan, you're here too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and as we're going through here, I'm going to we'll be unmuting some other folks as we go. Some folks use the general link to actually log in tonight. So here's sort of an agenda. So everybody's muted, and if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we will be happy to answer them for you. Jen, you've got your hand up. I'm actually going to unmute you here in just a second and ask you a question unless you put yours down. There are a couple of people who've got their hands up. Oh, yours just disappeared, so that's good. And my slide went backwards. I don't know why. There we go. So this is the basic agenda that we're going to hit. We're going to talk about setup, team arrival, queuing, the field and gameplay, and then the loadout process. I'm hoping that we can get through this relatively quickly. If you have any questions, again, raise your hand or hit the questions box, or if you want to add any comments, let us know. We're not intending to exclude anybody, but with 75 people, it gets really difficult to control the microphone resource. So, all right. With that, so just in general, the event this weekend actually ran really well. We were pretty happy with it. There were a few little aches and pains, most of it having to do with the best laid plans completely fail once you hit the ground. We had a few of our plans didn't actually work out as expected, and then we generated a couple of technical issues that we'll talk about a little bit later. But as far as from the teams are concerned, I had about 99% positive comments, and in fact, I had tons of very good comments. Everything from this is running just like they would have expected a first event to run, to others who were really beaming about the fact that not only do they get to play twice, but they really liked the shorter event schedule and didn't have to take so much time off work. Honestly, I went ahead and wrote down all 5 comments that I got in terms of negatives, and one person pointed out that the pits are cramped, which yes, they are. It's a lot of people in a somewhat smaller room. A lot of people weren't too wild about having to park off-site, and there was some confusion about instructions for how to get there. We'll mitigate that for the future events that we need to have off-site parking. That's probably mostly a communication issue from us. Few people one person did comment that the day was a bit longer than they could handle. I actually only heard that once, but I thought I'd throw it on there. One team of 3 kids kind of really wished we had a lighting thing like they did before. And then the only other big comment was some people had problems finding a trash can. And so I think those are the only 5 things that sort of stuck in my mind and that I wrote down as comments for improvement. So that tells me that we did usually a pretty good job, because quite frankly we have a very vocal group. They'll tell us when things go wrong. So with that, we're going to kind of plow ahead here and talk about each area. So the target audience, by the way, of this presentation are all the volunteers. So I'm assuming that you get you have somewhat of a sense of what it is that we're doing. But so we're gonna go through this setup, and then we'll go through setup, when the teams arrive, playing in the game, and the teardown. That's sort of the basics of this agenda. So setup in the pits actually went pretty well. The first thing that happened was that we threw down the floor tarps, or laid them out. Throwing them down isn't quite the right word. that actually did require a fair number of people. So for all of the site hosts, we kind of need about six to 10 people to get the tarps down. Seemed like the more the merrier. That they went down quite a bit faster than I expected when we had about, I think we had about 12 people in there, as I recall, setting up, and I think we got the tarps down in less than 10 minutes. So it was a pretty good deal. We did find that we needed to tape the seams. We originally didn't think we needed to tape the seams of the floor covering, but we need to. We've taken care of that. We now have extra blue vinyl tape for taping down the seams. We actually only taped down the seams in the walkways, so we did the taping after we got the pits laid out and set down. We're trying to conserve a little bit of tape. It just we go through a lot of it. So if we can try, maybe the next week we'll try getting away with just taping down where the teams are walking and not where they're standing. We did need a couple of, we needed to bring in a couple extra tables for volunteer check-in that we weren't planning on. Some of the pit maps show us having about 3 tables for pit admin. Volunteer check-in actually needed a full 3 tables. They needed to set up T-shirts and computers and things like that. So that's in addition to all of our plans that we need to take care of. A comment was made that we needed to serpentine the teams so that we had we're not going to try and alternate them doing a low team, high team, low team, but we will try and make it so that you know, a row that faces another row might have veterans on one side and not so veterans on the other. So, and then generally we just need more trash cans. That was a pretty common refrain. There were a lot of people in the building, so I think more trash cans would actually be a definite plus. Adrian, Susan, anything that I missed on this one?
Not that I can think of.
From my end. Yep.
All right, great. Let's talk about general setup issues. And this is more of an organizational issue that we're going to try and deal with. We had a lot of people, a lot of new people and new volunteers helping us out with stuff. Many of them were students. We realized that it was very difficult to manage that many people in an efficient way, so we're going to try and come up with project cards, which, you know, a project might be go find case 51 and 52 and set up all of the stanchions. That's the only thing on the card, and it'll tell them where to go get their, you know, what it is we want them to do, where to find their supplies, and how to implement it, and those sorts of things. Brenda's asking how long did setup take. Setup in the pits, I think, took about an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most. So we were set up pretty quickly. But a lot of that was based on the number of people that we had. Sorry about that. That was a little diversion. I saw her question. It was a good question. So the tarps did work best with about 8 people sort of manhandling them. For those of you who have not seen the tarps yet, they are the big ones are 56 by 30. They're 14 mil thick, which means they weigh right about 200 pounds per each. And we used 6 of them in the pits and 3 of them around the field. So they're not actually bad at all to move as long as you have enough people. So that's pretty important. We're unlikely to use the tarps on concrete floors or floors where we've been told that they don't matter. We have a few of those. We're probably not going to use the tarps at the universities in the pit area, and probably Glacier Peak and Oregon City. We're not going to use the tarps, so that'll help save us quite a bit of time. Okay, so. But I think the lesson learned here was for us just generally that the setup probably would have gone smoother if we had some sort of project card or some way of giving people some written instructions on what to do. We are going to work on that. Okay. All right. Generator issues. This was a hot topic for a great bit of time on Thursday. So you're going to hear about this probably from a few teams or a few of the other volunteers. It turned out that, of course, we are blessed with engineers. We had an electrical engineer pull out an oscilloscope and take a look at the power that was coming out of the generator. It was electrically noisy. And believe it or not, after all of that hoo-ha that we made about limiting your pit power, the teams did an extraordinarily good job, and it turned out they weren't drawing enough power. And actually, that isn't entirely the reason, but it turns out we have a lot of inductive loads. The battery chargers are all switching chargers, and we had a lot of lithium-ion chargers. And so the power got electrically noisy, and it was causing the GFIs to trip. So we went through this with an electrical engineer. We also contacted our rental place, and I actually spent a good amount of time today on the phone with our friends at MQ Power. They're actually the manufacturer of the generator. And so what we needed to do was to add a large resistive load to help balance out the regulator on the generator itself. So we did do that on last Thursday night and Friday morning. We ended up hooking up three 1,500 watt space heaters, and that sort of smoothed things right out. So we had a long consultation with some very smart people. We believe we have that problem fixed for the sites that are using the generator. So if you hear about generator problems, we got it for you. But having said that, if you're part of the machine shop crew or the pit crew, we do have a process for you to help mitigate that. The symptom, in case you're wondering what the symptom is, the spider boxes that we're using with the pit power, they have a bunch of 20 amp circuits on them. Each circuit is individually protected by a GFI, and those GFIs were blowing. So we think we've got that one licked. All right. But something to be aware of. The other thing that we learned is that we're going to need to find a technically competent person to be our go-to troubleshooter for pit power on well, basically at all the venues, but especially the ones with generators, because it did turn out there were some legitimate GFI issues in the room. So there was a couple of power supplies that we could plug them into a GFI and they would snap immediately. So, or a couple of chargers, and that had nothing to do with our generator problem, I don't think. So anyway, need somebody to deal with that. That is I don't know that we need to dedicate a specific volunteer position to it, but we would like to have somebody around, or somebody that is maybe a mentor or something in the pits that can handle those issues for us. Okay, moving on from that. So field setup, and we have some comments from others, but I was going to hopefully get some comments from Carrie about field setup for everybody that's going to be around the field. What are your comments, Carrie? Oh, and you might have muted yourself.
Let me unmute myself here for a second.
There you go.
So field setup, the issues we had was New Hampshire wanted to do a bunch of software updates. That was a big distraction for the FTAs because we kept wanting to go over there and see how it was going. The setup crew that actually came to set up the physical field was a great help. They did a good job, you know, jumping in and doing all the game-specific stuff for the first time. I think we had about the right size crew teardown. We almost were borderline too many people unplugging stuff before we're ready to unplug stuff. I don't really have any gotchas about field setup at this time.
And Carrie, so I think during setup we had about 10 people. Does that seem about right? Minus
Yes.
the FTAs?
Yeah. And we did have some concerns about the carpet getting kind of lumpy over the tarps, and I think I might recommend taping the seams, not 100% coverage, but maybe 2 feet across and maybe 5 places across the whole length of the tarp, and then being able to kind of pull it taut just a little bit before we start rolling out the carpet.
Okay. That seems like it seems like a reasonable plan. Yep. All right, and then in terms of so we had, I think we had about 10. It seems like we had about 10 people, and then we also had some AV people doing setup around the field as well. I think for me, it turned out that we probably started the AV people a little bit too early. The routing of the AV wires sort of requires the field to be there. And so when the field wasn't there, and we didn't really want to take up a bunch of room with the pipe and drape and stuff, so I think actually we could probably delay the AV setup and maybe divert those folks to help set up the pits for about the first hour and a half, 2 hours. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. A big thing that we did run into for setup, though, is we came in with a plan, and then we had enough people on running around that we ended up not either communicating the plan, or the plan didn't get followed terribly well about how the power got distributed, and we also learned some things. The biggest one that we learned is we normally allocate 20 amps for a 20 amps for the field and 20 amps for the AV equipment, and it turns out that this particular field with all of the lights was by the time you plug the lights and the laptops in, they were drawing about 700 watts a side, which is 1,400 watts total for the field. We think that's more than what I think is normal and what I would have expected. So I think we're gonna at all the venues we need to find 2 20-amp circuits for the field, and then we need 1 20-amp circuit for the audiovisual equipment. So that's 3 instead of 2 circuits. I think we need to remember that we need to get a reliable circuit map for each venue. I thought I had one worked out with the guy on site. It turned out that Auburn Mountainview provided us with a map, but I didn't connect with my site host to actually get that from her, and that probably would have saved us quite a bit of time. The other key thing is that when people are laying down power cords on the field, we need to be very explicit and very careful that you can't just plug in anywhere. We need to make sure to keep the field and the AV equipment separate. The AV equipment is going to draw somewhere around 14 to 16 amps, which is almost, I mean, is good enough to call it the full 20 amp load. What we were seeing is that the voltage was dropping because of we ended up with some mishmash of potential fixes and patches, and we ended up running some cords well over 150 to 200 feet, and we were getting about 98 to 106 volts out the other end of those cords, which wasn't enough. So we ended up with audiovisual equipment plugged into the FMS, and the FMS was actually plugged into the AV equipment, which was it. So anyway, it got messy. Once we took the time on Friday evening, we stopped after the game, and we rewired everything, and everything came back to life, and it ran great all day Saturday. So lesson learned there. To support this endeavor of being very careful about it, we have new power cables coming. They're going to be in field case 56, which is the tripod case, but there's a large bin of power cords. They're 12-3 power cords. They are dedicated for providing power to the field and to the AV system. So that's where you'll find them, and we will. They have a spot. All right. And then we're also going to remove all the cable covers from around the field. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but while we're setting up the field, we need to take care to not create any cable crossings. The wheels on the 3-inch wheels on the team's carts just weren't big enough. We had some queuing issues, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Anything else that we need to cover, Carrie, about field setup?
No, that's it for now.
Okay. Brenda's asking how many is too many for teardown. I think we had about 16.
We had about 15 or so.
Yeah, I'm going 16 if I count myself. We had 16 really great people. 5 of them were chiefs, which was probably a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay. It was there were people who ended up kind of standing around a lot, and the biggest we'll get to tear down a little bit later, but there are some issues that we need to resolve for tear down. Somebody was pointing out that there were quite a few problems with the live video feed. That is a hardware problem with a specific component. It is actually sitting in front of me right now, and I will get that fixed by next week. It was not a power issue. It was a bad piece of hardware. Okay. Come on, slides. There we go. There we go. So setup for the AV, it took a bit longer than expected, and I think most of that was our fault for not having better instructions for the students who were helping us set up in combination with the fact that we were trying to set up while the field wasn't fully developed yet. So we're also going to, for the AV people, we're going to move the cameras over to where the truss is. We're going to eliminate the cable crossing at the front of the field, which is opposite where the FMS, the other side from the FMS. So we're going to shorten up the number of cables that we need, and we're going to route some stuff in a better way. We're also going to come up with a new plan for getting power to the speakers in the front. We were using these multi-drop power cables. Some of you, the AV folks, have seen these before. We're going to not use those. We're going to run dedicated lines. And again, new cords are on their way. They'll be here on Wednesday. So we're going to avoid using the multi-drop cables, and I'll be pulling those out of the case. The field monitor speakers, we originally intended to put those on tripods. It actually worked way better to just put the monitor speakers on the floor. One of them under the AV table on one side of the field, and then we'll probably put it under the game announcer on the right-hand side of the field. That got rid of a tripod that people didn't need to trip on. Okay. Come on, slides. There we go. It's really slow from my machine for some reason. Okay. The other surprise that we had that we weren't expecting is we put up our pipe and drape, and about an hour later, the air conditioning switched on, and it sucked our pipe and drape up into up against the wall and sort of tipped it over. So we need to be a little careful with that. So if you're setting up, take a look up on the wall, make sure you don't have a large return air intake. We were able to sort of mitigate it with weighting things down and stuff, but I think we're just going to avoid it. It really didn't work well. The sign that there's some banners that were hanging right in front of it that they don't flow air real well, so that's what got sucked up against the wall. We also had some banners that we were supposed to hang. The hanging mechanism for that didn't work out well, so we'll be sending along a fix for that. We have a new solution for that, but it's going to take us a week to get the parts for it. Next week, I'll be on the phone with Trevor, and Trevor, I'm not sure if Trevor actually made it, but we'll be on the phone with the technical director to make sure that we get, Trevor is here. So Trevor, we're going to, I'll have a solution for you. You and I can talk about that on the phone. So I see that you're here. I think we're also going to try and run all of the audio cords around the side. We were running it around the field. We've done that in the past. I think we're going to actually go out to the left-hand gym wall and go up. So I'll detail that a little bit later, but we're not routing things like we used to, so if you're on the AV setup crew, check with me on that. All right, there is AV setup. All the equipment actually worked well, and everything actually looked really good by the time we were done. So, all right, and Steve Kelly from Oregon saw how it got ran, so we'll be in good shape. All right. Yeah, I missed. There we go. So moving on now to when the teams arrived. I was standing outside checking for 3-inch wheels at the door. I was surprised how small a 3-inch wheel really was. I actually pulled over a couple of teams and made them get out a measuring tape, and sure enough, they were 3-inch wheels. We found that even with 3-inch wheels, the team still had problems getting over the cable humps. We're not going to change the rules this year, but I think we're going to change to 5-inch wheels next year. So the nut of this is that teams still need to be careful with those cable bumps. We're going to try our best to eliminate as many as possible. During team arrival, we did route the teams past in the inspection table. So the inspectors basically set up just inside the venue where the teams were entering in order to watch for the 45 pounds and stuff. And I don't know, I think a load-in went really quickly. Adrian, did you get any feedback on load-in?
I think load-in in general went very quickly. I mean, I didn't get any negative feedback.
Yeah. So the teams did an awesome job at following the rules, and yeah, things went actually quite smoothly there. And yeah, and Chris was there. He also said that that it went well. So we're pretty pleased with that. Inspection. I wasn't sure. Did Alita make it?
I was just looking to see.
I don't see her.
I think the only thing that I heard from Alita was getting set up in time with loading in at 3 o'clock. She felt a little rushed and felt like she wasn't completely ready.
Okay.
But the majority of our upcoming events are loading in at noon, so I think that will mitigate that problem. Auburn High School is loading in at 3, and that's week 5. And Wilsonville, are they loading in at 3 too, Kevin? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yes.
But I think by then everybody will have been inspected and will have the process refined, and so it might not be as much of an issue.
Right.
For the next couple weeks, we're loading in later, and that should solve that problem. Bumpers apparently were an issue, and so I'm reading through the I'm reading through the comments. There were a bunch of bumper issues that. Yeah, and I believe we had 12 teams that still needed to be inspected Friday morning. I asked Alita Friday morning, and I think she said 12. So they did not get through everybody, but they got through about 2/3 of them on Friday, and had everybody inspected in plenty of time. I mean, on Thursday, and had everybody inspected in plenty of time on Friday.
Got it. And we got there's a bazillion people typing comments at us right now, and they're actually almost all the same. So let me summarize. Many bad bumpers made it onto the field. So feedback from the head referees is that if you're a referee and you feel like there's a need to call somebody for a hardware violation, you really should talk to the head referee first. I think that was just check with the head referee before you call somebody on it. The teams in theory have already passed inspection, so we know that we had some issues with that. There was a conflict between what the inspectors were saying were okay and what the referees were saying was okay, and really that decision is up to the head referee. So if you are a referee, make sure that you've if you feel the need to call an issue with something like that, check with the head referee. There's several comments like that from various referees here. Mount Vernon load-in is at 8 a.m. Yes, it is, Delinda. The setup, though, our inspectors will be setting up at 3. Our inspectors will be setting up the night before, so that's what that comment was aimed at. And yep, I think there are some other comments there. There were other minor issues. I won't go into those right now. But thank you all for the comments. Aside from that, we did get inspection done by the start of the contest. Actually, we got 20 of the 32 teams done on Thursday, and some of them actually were done in the first couple hours. So that was good. And the 12 that were left most of them finished by about 9 o'clock or so on Friday morning. And there were a couple of squeakers right there at the end, but there will always be those. There were some weight reductions that had to happen, so those are always time-consuming. All right, so we'll move on from here to the machine shop. Let me see if Pat is here. Pat O'Dowd is. We talked to Pat. So you are, by the way, you are all getting the Reader's Digest version of the 4-hour meeting we had yesterday. There were a number of long conversations about supplies and a bunch of other stuff, but we're not going to bore you with what Adrian and I forgot to pack or needed to add. There's a lot of stuff like that. So, Pat O'Dowd was our machine shop lead for this weekend. They got it all set up. We're doing something new. It's in a tent with a trailer, and so the setup for that was not too bad. We had some minor setup issues with the machine shop trailer having to do with the power. We'll get that documented better so the teams the team for the machine shop knows how to deal with that. We do need to fold up our tent at night, so that means everything has to go back into the machine shop trailer at night. So if you're a machine shop person who is working on the in one of the outdoor venues, we do need to put your tent away at night. It actually blew over on Friday night. It blew over. Luckily, I was there and put it back up, but wasn't too bad. We reduced the size of the machine shop tent to a 10-foot by 20-foot. They come with, it's an easy up. So we bought these original, we have another set of them. They're really clumsy to put together. So these ones literally are those pop-up tents that you'd see at a convention. They have sides on them, and they come with 6 legs and 6 about 35-pound sandbags that fit those legs. And so it took it takes realistically about 6 people 5 or 6 minutes to set this thing up. It's really, really easy to do. Went up almost immediately. So it's easy thing to set up, tear down. Darren's pointing out that we need to take pictures of what's inside the machine shops. I agree. We'll take care of that. Yes, one of the weird things of the great ironies of the machine shop tent is bad weather is actually a problem. If it's windy or overly rainy, they don't perform well, which is sort of silly because that's why they're there. However, we just need to be careful with that. If the weather gets too ugly, we may need to shut the shop down. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is it turned out the machine shop was pretty well underutilized this time, which is good on the teams. You know, the teams came with their robots running and prepared. Pat reported that he only had about 20 jobs all day on Friday and very, very few on Saturday. So it was pretty well underutilized. So now that may be a case that they didn't know that the machine shop was there, which is possible, although it's been mentioned at every briefing. But so hopefully that just means things things are progressing, I guess, in terms of the district model. So, all right, and there are some other comments, and I thank you all for your comments, and we will probably send out the question chat log a little bit later. You guys are very, very good at typing stuff. We don't normally get this many comments. There's a lot of duplicates in here. I think I've hit most of them. All right. PID admin was the wonderful Cheryl Lomheim, and Cheryl was also here for the long debrief yesterday. In general, PID admin went really well. There were just a few comments that came in. We had set up a PID display computer with a couple of monitors, hoping that that would suffice, but it turns out we should probably see what we can do about finding a place to use a projector. Many of our venues we won't be able to, and so we will set up those displays, but a projector would work better if we can find a way to pull that off. PID audio did have a few issues during the day. A cable was broken by a team driving over it with their wheels. And there may be an issue with one of the soundboards. We're working on that. General comment from several people is they would have enjoyed more trash cans so that they could throw things away easier. So if we've got room, let's see if we can find some places to put trash cans. And then the other one was for the final rounds, we need to make it clear to the teams that they're allowed to move some tools and supplies during the field or to the field during the final rounds, the final, not the quarterfinals, but maybe the semifinals and finals. We'll work on which. Well, actually, let's let them come out for the semifinals and finals. They don't really have time to make the round trip, so we will allow that. It'll depend on the venue whether they can actually do a whole lot in there. We found that the field around, for those of you who haven't seen it, Auburn Mountainview has a standard size gym. It was a two-sided event, and so the gym itself is about 100 feet by basketball court. It was a basketball court with about 10 feet on each side. So there wasn't really an enormous amount of room for queuing or for extra things going on around the side. So we may need to consider what we can do just outside in the hallway or something during the final rounds. All right. Queuing was a bit of an issue. Queuing, we only really had room for the next match to be in the queue line. These are small events. These are fast-moving events that the teams were running on about an average of 3 to 4 matches. They were up generally every third match. Some of them, it varies a little bit, but basically every third or fourth match they're up to play again. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for the teams to get back to their pits. So we're trying to keep our queuing to a minimum and just sort of keep the next match available. We don't need to be queuing 3 events deep. The teams don't have enough time to make repairs if we do that. Okay. All right. How am I doing, Adrian? Anything I'm missing so far?
Yeah, Kevin. The only thing I would add about bringing tools to the field is in the semifinals. There's 12 teams there, and there are breaks between they have to play. So if they're tight on space, we might have to limit bringing tools to the field just for the 6 teams that are in finals.
Oh yeah, the good point. Let's do that. All right. Reset to what I originally said. We'll allow the teams to bring the pits to their tools with them just in the finals.
Battery chargers may be limited depending on power within the venue. But there are spare batteries that are part of spare parts that we bring to the field for teams to use. So,
got it. Alan is asking for more time in the pit. Why can't teams play 2 matches back to back? That is certainly an option. However, in general, nobody likes that. In fact, actually, we've always sort of guaranteed them at least 2 matches. A lot of teams have to recharge air. They need to change batteries. There's always some minor tweak that needs to get done after each event. So that's why, Alan. We need to get that into the script for the kids at the head ref meeting after alliance selection. FTA should be there. I agree. Let's get the Carrie, can you add that to what you would normally say? You can bring your tools.
What was that? I missed that. Okay.
That'd be good. All right. Hey, we're getting towards the end here, folks. Yay. So queuing. Oh, so we already talked about queuing. One of the biggest issues that we ran into is we had a cable protection bump that ran between the front truss and the speaker wiring at the front of the field. We are going to remove that for subsequent events. We're trying really hard to make sure there are no cable bumps between the teams and either end of the field. The teams have to go around one side of the field in order for that to happen. There will be cable bumps behind the field, between the field and the FMS station. Aaron says more orange cones, which makes those of us here smile because first ended up sending us like, oh God, it must have been 60 of the darn things. We weren't sure why. But yes, I agree with you. We'll bring some more orange cones next time. It was pretty humorous. We've never actually used them in the past, but this year we needed a lot of them. So, all right. And then the flow of teams needs to be carefully just explained to the teams about how to get on and off the field. So we will, FTAs and referees, we need to make sure that the teams, and field supervisors, we need to make sure that the teams understand the order of getting on and off the field. I think that it worked okay. It's weird with the truss. The truss is really a pain in the butt. So fielding gameplay. Carrie, I'll let you go first, and actually I'm going to unmute David Martucci while you're talking because he may have an opinion on something. David, I'm unmuting you, so turn off whatever thing you're listening to. There you go. Hi, David. You there?
There I am.
There you are. Okay. So tell us about gameplay. How'd it go?
Well, let's see. I had about 4 things that I wanted to go down about, talk about. The first one was practice matches, and we ran. Am I? Everybody hear me? Okay? I'm not
Yes.
too loud, am I? Practice matches. We created a practice match schedule, which we ended up not really following, and there was a whole bunch of paper printing and publishing that went along with that. I think what I'm recommending for the FTAs going forward is that we just determine that we're going to do X number of hours of time of practice schedules. There's one line. We take the first 6 teams out of the front of that line. We put them on the field, run the match, and then we take the next 6 teams. And when a team gets done with the match, they can get back in line at the end. And we just keep the field full, and we don't worry about printing a bunch of paper that's just going to get wasted.
Where's my $20?
It's in the mail.
I had a $20 bet up with Carrie on that one. I like it. I'll split it with you. I'll buy you a barbecue.
Oh, there we go. Well, I didn't want to increase your pay by $20 this year.
What items?
The next thing is if people were watching, I know I'm a little bit off script here, but I want to cover these things. I think they're important. People that were watching this week noticed a few games that had to be replayed. There was a meeting with New Hampshire and the FTAs today. There's some issues that they know about, and they're working on fixes. I just kind of wanted to reassure people that they're on it. The other thing that I wanted to recommend is that the FTA work with the site coordinator early and probably often to figure out when matches are going to be played for the given number of teams. And it kind of depends on if there's people that are coming and speaking. You got to work around those. Kevin, you and I kind of did that, on the fly. But if that can get done sooner, that'd be better and make the whole event go smoother. Any thoughts on that?
Embarrassingly enough, my audio cut out. Can you repeat that? I'm really sorry. My audio cut out and I couldn't hear you. I can hear you now.
I was just recommending that the site coordinator and the FTA work early and often to come up with a match schedule running on 7-minute cycles to have enough matches for 12 matches per team for the number of teams that are at the event and get that public agenda worked out ahead of time. You and I kind of did it on the fly that day, and it would just be smoother if it was done ahead of time.
All right, sounds good. Yep.
And last but not least was opening ceremonies. We should make a comment to the audience about Wi-Fi in the audience. They should not have any hotspots in the venue.
Yes, we will do that. Got it?
And I'm looking at your slide now, 7-minute cycles. I think that's a good thing. We don't want to deviate from that in these smaller venues. When we get to Portland, we may notch that down a bit and maybe get closer to 6 or 6.5 because we're going to have more teams there.
Got it. All right.
That's all I had.
All righty. And then David, do you have anything, Mr. Martucci, do you have anything that you would like to bring up?
Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. So, yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, you have it listed in the slide here. The refs have an incredibly difficult job this year. They are acting as scorekeepers, also as refs, and also as an integral part of the game play. So the actions that they take as refs affect the game directly in terms of, you know, when they say the goals are scored, it releases the next ball to be played and things like that. So they really are, we're concentrating very hard at getting that right. There's, you know, with the bugs in the system and other issues that we had, there were some issues. I'm hoping that we're making the corrections. We're going to have a ref meeting on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll clear some more of that up. But another person that is also integral to the gameplay is the field reset crew, who are responsible for moving the balls around, and when the balls come off the field, making sure the balls get back on and reintroduced in the right place. So I'm going to recommend, and we need to coordinate this at future events, is that during the practice rounds, and we do some practice with those field reset people. Usually we do it for the queuing, but we also need to make sure that we're in sync on how that game works between the refs and those field reset people for any of those types of instances. So we do need to capture them for a little while before the matches, hopefully during the practice, so that we can make sure that we get that all straight. Like I said, we're going to be having a refs meeting on Wednesday, so we'll go over a lot of the specific issues that we had and some of the things we're going to do to try to resolve them. One of the main things is that our radios will be improved, right, Kevin?
Well, yes, absolutely. Your wife's on it.
Yes. So that is the biggest thing. Because we're concentrating so hard on watching the game, we really need to be able to speak to each other, and we had some issues there.
Okay.
The last thing I wanted to make a note of is that there were some replays, and I just want to make it clear to everybody that's kind of watching the game that when we're making a decision for whether or not to do a replay, you know, Carrie and I talk about it, and it's all to do with whether or not we thought there was something wrong with the actions that we took, or if the field made a mistake. We're not looking at the score, and as a matter of fact, during these matches, we don't really know what the score is. We don't really pay that much attention to the score. So, you know, you may see us looking and talking to the scorekeeper at times, but this is very much like FTC and XFL. We count some of the score, or whether or not there's a goal, whether or not there's possessions, but we don't know what that relates to as far as a score, and we don't really make that part of our decision making as to whether or not we're going to replay. If we know that there's a field fault, there was something wrong technically with the game that inhibited it, that's how we made that decision. So just wanted to throw that out there so people understood what our actions were and how our decisions were made. And I think that's all I have for right now.
One thing that
questions.
One thing that did come up on the FTA call today is kind of reiterating that the head ref and the FTA and anybody around the field will not change a decision based on video replay. And so that's just kind of a common theme that everybody needs to know about that's supporting the event, that video replays will not change a decision.
Yeah, and that's incredibly important, especially this year, because with the amount of activity going on, the refs will miss things. There's no doubt about it. We're going to miss penalties. We're going to miss possessions, and that's just a fact that, you know, we're going to try to get better and better as time goes on, but I think we just have to work our way around that. What we see is what we see.
And and just a reminder, that's like every other sporting event in the world. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's not unique to First. I'm gonna there's a couple of people who've got their hands raised. I'm gonna unmute some people. Delinda, I'm about to unmute you. Hi, Delinda, are you there? Do you have a mic? Maybe not.
Yeah, I've got a mic. I don't have a question though. My hand's not raised.
Oh, okay. I'll lower it for you. Okay, thanks. Beth, you got your hand up. Hi, Beth.
Hello. There was a camera person set up in the corner of the field inside the player area, and most of the time it was okay, but a few times they actually got in the way of players trying to run balls over, and I think that's really not acceptable.
Yes, we took care of that. Thank you. I agree. Most of the time, and actually quite often it was me, and I was as hugged up close to the field as possible, but there were a couple of times when for some reason somebody put the tripod inside the human player thing, and that was unacceptable. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sorry about that. That was a mistake by the students running it. So
It wasn't the tripod. It was the person standing there actually had their foot out or their elbow out, and the player tripped over them.
Yep, I saw it.
And another thing on that point, I tracked down a couple of these guys. You know, they have media passes and things, but to be out in the arena, they really have to have their safety glasses on. I know that they're photographers and they're trying to take pictures, but that's kind of a rule for safety.
Got it. Okay, thanks, Beth. Aaron, what's up? We can hear you.
Yeah, I was going to say that for the refs, there is a lot to watch, but probably the hardest thing for me was dealing with the tablet user interface. It's a bit frustrating, to say the least. If First makes improvements there, I'm guessing that we will have fewer problems in the coming weeks, but I can't say whether or not that'll happen.
Right. So Aaron, you're talking specifically about the latencies?
Not necessarily just the latencies, but for example, if I'm going to submit a foul, that's 4 or 5 button presses.
Right.
Which means then obviously it's going to take me 4 or 5 seconds to submit the goal that you just scored, which means your pedestal light is not going to come on right away.
Right. Yeah. So we've noted all that. So I'm assured that the game committee is working on it.
And I can tell you that the game committee got an entire earful from people just like me this weekend.
Yeah, and to be clear, you know, we looked through the notes from all the other events and the head refs from the other events, and it was like, you know, the one I read from Michigan, it was like the guy was reading my mind, and I sent it out to Mike York, and he's like, boy, did you write that for him? Because it was the exact same issues, you know, right down the line that we had. It was amazing.
So for week 2, Andy and I will be there, and we can probably provide some advice at Glacier Peak. I don't know if Oregon wants any information from the lay refs who are at Auburn Mountainview on kind of tips and tricks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll be talking about that on our call on Wednesday as well, Aaron. But that's good news for Tom.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Trevor, you had a question?
Hey, so when I was watching the stream, actually it's more just a comment, but when I was watching the stream, I noticed there's a couple of white balance issues with the cameras. Do you think maybe when we go or at Glacier Peak and stuff, we can make sure that we add, you know, check color balance and stuff before we like start streaming?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because there was the one particular camera that was like up in the stands that was just so hideously yellow.
Yeah, I noticed. We'll why don't you and I talk about that one offline?
All right, sounds good.
Sounds awesome. Thanks.
All right.
So I'll let you mute yourself again.
Okay.
All right. So the let me close up this section by saying that this is I've been doing first a long time. This is one of the ugliest games for the referees ever. I know that our referees are very frustrated at times and feeling like they may have screwed up. I want to reassure every one of them that the reality is that it has nothing to do with you. The process that was set up for the referees this year is a huge challenge. First is very aware of it, and honestly, you guys do an amazing job keeping up with all of this stuff. It's just it's mind-bogglingly complex to have to be juggling all this stuff all at once, and we really appreciate all of the effort that you're putting into it. And I never ever should you feel bad about missing a call on this game. It has nothing at all to do with you or your skills or your integrity or anything like that. It's entirely the complexities that they threw at us, and we're really hoping that they can come up with some fixes and some modifications to the gameplay to make this easier on you guys, because it's not really this is not a fair game for the referees by any stretch of the imagination. So thank you for your understanding with that. We really we can't do these events without you guys, and it just is it's an amazing amazing thing that you're doing, and so keep up the good work. All right. Let us then move on to loadout. Oh, okay. So sorry. That I think Carrie. I know that Carrie had to run off to another meeting, and I actually have got one coming up here pretty quickly. So I'm going to we'll go on.
Kevin, I was going to say you got about 15 more minutes probably before we have to.
Right. Okay. So in terms of loadout, so there are three big areas for loadout: the field, the pits, and the AV equipment. I think in general the teams did a good job at getting out of the building on time, and we appreciate that a lot. Some of the key things that we need to remember is that loadout for us is not throwing stuff back in the box and leaving. What we're really doing is we're packing for the next event, because there's no way that the little tiny staff that we have here of me and Adrian and Eric Van Buren can go through every one of these crates to make sure everything is correct. So we're really relying on every one of you to help us during the loadout phase of making sure everything gets put back where it's supposed to be, so that the next time you or the next person down the line who needs to find something in the box is able to actually find it. I think generally we did a very, very good job of that, and I want to thank everybody who did help out with that at Auburn Mountainview, and thanks in advance to everybody who's going to do an awesome job for the rest of the season. It's really important for us that we sweep and remove all of the tape off of our floor protection out of the pits. It turned out that this turned out to be a much bigger job than anyone was expecting. We had arranged to have some of those 3-foot wide dust mops, but it turns out that the tarps have wrinkled, and a combination of that and the material that's left behind, which is usually aluminum drill swarf and a little bit of sawdust and various bits and pieces of robot, don't really sweep up real well. They hit the seams of and wrinkles in the tarps, and the dust mops drop it all. So it turned out to be a little bit more work than what we were expecting. We are remedying that. We're putting in each truck is going to get 6 soft bristled push brooms, and so there should be plenty of brooms around. But we really do need to keep those tarps as clean as we can, so that when we lay them down the next time, there isn't time during setup at most of our events to be going around and scraping off old tape. That needs to be done before we put the equipment away. The other reason is that tape that's upside down or is curled over, if you leave it that way, when we pile a tarp on the bottom and we put 900 pounds of other tarps on top of it, it will adhere the tarp to itself. So please help us out and make sure that all of those get cleaned off. And then the tarp folding actually went pretty well. It required about 6 people per tarp. Actually worked pretty good. We used 8 on the main field, and I made a game out of it. These are mostly students helping out, and honestly, we were able to fold one of those big tarps in less than 2 minutes. And in fact, we managed to put away all of the tarps on the main field in 9 minutes flat. It was just like 2 seconds under 9 minutes. It was actually very well done. So, yeah, but it does take people. So don't make sure that you're keeping enough people around. Even though things are going to slow down for a little while, you do need to have between 6 and 8 people to put these tarps away. And unfortunately, it is the last thing that's going to happen during the day in each one of these areas. So keep that in mind for your field teardown folks. If you can have your teams clean up as much as they possibly can and remove all the tape from the floor around them, that would actually make this go quite a bit faster. So we really do appreciate that. I'm going to run through the questions here really quick. Oh, actually, some people were reminding us to get the teams to clean their areas. Thank you for everybody who said that. Is there a clean side to the tarps? Doug, we need both sides to get cleaned. In theory, we want the dimple side down on the tarps, but the reality is it's hard for people to see that, and once the tarp gets folded out, if you have to flip it over, it kind of is no fun. So people generally just put down whatever side came out. Was there any significant damage to the floors after the tarps were removed? No, actually, we did extraordinarily well. I did a pretty careful survey before and after, and I saw no noticeable signs that we were there. So I think that's awesome. Part of that is the tarps, part of that is the wheels, and part of that is the fact that we didn't tape the tarps to the floors on any of the hardwood. So I think we did a pretty good job. There were a couple of places that duct tape got used. In general, if you are a volunteer and you see a roll of duct tape anywhere in the building, feel free to take it and throw it away. Duct tape is just evil. It should not be applied to any of our equipment or to anything onto the school. Regina found they found a scratch on the outgoing pit door, probably from the tarp road case. Interesting. Could be. All right. So we damaged the floor. Dang. Hopefully it's not too bad. All right. So field teardown. Carrie had to leave. We had. I'm pretty sure we had 16 people there for field teardown. It was handy to have that many people, but at the same time, a lot of people were fairly underutilized. But that's okay. Everybody's a little tired. It gave everybody a little bit of a break. Things when they are being taken down, we have to be very careful about how things get put away. All of our cords, all of our AV equipment, all have stickers on them that. And they have a bin, specific bin they go in. So, and actually everything that we own has a sticker as to what case number it goes in. And so we think we're being pretty organized about that. There are some exceptions to that. The things that first shipped us do not have stickers on them. Specifically, the control system don't. And there are a few miscellaneous cables that didn't get labeled properly. We're working on those, but for the most part, all of the AV equipment, all of the main cords and pipe and drape equipment and stanchions and such, they all have case labels. So that actually worked about as good as we could have expected. But if again, it's one of those things. We have inventory lists on a lot of the detail-oriented bins, and then we have another bin of just general supplies that. Like case 56 has a bin, everything's labeled, but it's just like general extension cords for whoever needs them. So, okay. Carrie mentioned something about taping sections every XX feet. Any chance we can use painter's tape to tape down the tarps? No, let's not use painter's tape. We have vinyl tarp tape. It is explicitly used on our vinyl tarps. We ran out of it. At this first event, we are now the proud owners of an entire case of it. Every event is going to get 4 rolls of this blue tape. That's what we use on the tarps. No duct tape. The painter's tape looks like a good idea. We've found with the first LEGO League, we have experience with it now. It's almost impossible to get off after it's been rolled over and torn up. So. All right. I think that handles all those questions. There are 2 slides that I did not get to, and I apologize about that. It's been a very busy day. The AV teardown actually went quite nicely. I think it was well organized, and we appreciate everybody who took the time to, after they got all of the stuff into each road case bin. There's a bin that goes into a road case. Somebody was very gracious and stopped to take the time to actually take everything back out of the box and then go through the inventory list. We found some things missing, and we found we were able to find everything that was missing and put it back where it was supposed to be. So that worked out really well. Inventory control is really, really important for us. We have spent upwards of $40,000 on this equipment, and we have enough plus just a little bit of extras here and there. But if we end up losing something, it's not going to be there next time. And some of it's really important. We won't be able to show the scores if we don't get the VGA cable back. If we, there are certain actually all of the components of the AV system are critical. We just have to have it all back where it's supposed to be. So thank you so much for that. Loading of the truck went fairly well. We inadvertently, when we packed the truck, we had a packing list. The packing list ended up putting road cases 6 and 7 at the front, so we had to wait for them. Those turned out to be the last 2 cases that the field is packing, so we have reorganized the map today. We will have a printed map, and we sort of reoriented or reorganized some of the cases so that we can get the truck loading started early. It took about 45 minutes to actually load the truck with a forklift. Actually went pretty well. We used about a dozen people to load the truck, so we'd like to have at least a dozen people left. Most of those folks were really responsible for making sure the road cases didn't roll down a hill. It was a little bit chilly, so everybody needs to wear a coat, but it was kind of fun. The truck loading happened in the dark, so we ended up having to park a couple of pickup trucks about 200 feet behind it, turned on their high beams, and that provided us illumination. We have lights for the inside of the truck, but they were unfortunately left at the warehouse, but we will not make that mistake again. Having said that, lighting it up with the pickup trucks allowed us to also light up the general areas, so that actually worked out pretty well. The truck left at 9:15. We are going to change the time that the trucks arrive. We currently have them all scheduled to show up at 6:30. We'll be changing that for them to arrive at 7:30 for loadout, because we were nowhere close to being ready. We didn't start loading the truck until after 8 o'clock. I'm assuming we're going to get faster at that as time goes on, so we're going to bump it back to 7:30 for the next couple of events, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Pete's asking, will you have a set of issues for the referees to watch out for? I believe David can help me out with this. I believe, Pete, there is a referee call on Wednesday. Is that right, David?
That is correct.
So
that's correct. We have a ref call for all of the head refs on Wednesday.
Is that just the head refs then?
Yeah, it's the head refs and Roxy for all the head refs on Wednesday, and then each head ref will have calls with their individual staff.
Okay, so Pete, you should be hearing from your head ref about what the issues are. And is there a general place on the web for all referees to go to, or is it pretty much going through the head ref?
Under Mike. Oh yeah, so for Pete, he should be hearing from Mike York pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you, Pete. Oh, Mike is here. I'm going to unmute Mike. Oh, I can't unmute Mike. Mike already sent an email. Mike just sent an email. Mike, you're on the phone, and for some reason you don't have an audio pin. I don't know how to deal with that right now. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm sure Mike will send him an email. That's usually what's done is there's some just emails that go out with instructions from the head ref to the refs, and then a call will be scheduled probably a week or so before the event.
So the reply from is Pete, check your email. He sent out an email this morning, so if you can check on that. And Pete
Well,
says,
there you go.
hey, all right. Thank you, guys. All right. The other just general look and feel of the whole thing is this was a pretty high quality event. We had staff from First on hand. We had Lori Burkhammer and Andrea Winiger, and they were thoroughly blown away by the quality of the event here in the Northwest. Our AV system performed extremely well, minus occasional freezes in the web stream, but we got glowing reviews about our camera coverage and the quality of how everything not only looked, but how the event ran. Everybody was thoroughly impressed by the fact that we caught up a missing hour. We were an hour behind at one point on Friday afternoon, and granted that we did punt one of our breaks, but the reality is we managed to get back to 2 minutes ahead of schedule by the end of the day. So thank you to everybody who volunteered this weekend for making that happen. The catering, by the way, the catering went very well. It was the food was actually pretty good and well within our budget, so we really appreciate those sorts of things. And I think in general, this was just an outstanding event. The video, in case everybody's wondering, because I'm going to get this question a lot, tell us about the district ranking points. I'm going to pop this up on my screen, I think. I was going to pop this up on my screen. There we go. And I will move it over here. And if you go to www.firstwa.org, a couple of things I'll point right out here on the front page. If anybody wants to watch the web stream or is wondering how to tell people about it, they are right here on the front page. We have the blue channel and the red channel. Oregon is red next week. So Oregon City is, you can click here to watch, and blue on the left side. The other thing is that if your teams are, or if you're wondering about the actual district rankings, Alex Herride and Paul Malmsteen from Team 492, their alumni, put up this. If you click on this, you can get the rankings for, these are the point rankings for after the first event. So if people are looking for that, here they are, and you can click on various things here to find out. The event video, unfortunately, we were unable to upload our event video, and we really hate the fact that this happens, but because of the music that plays in the background, every time we upload something, we get a DMCA takedown notice from YouTube. And it's really disappointing to us that it's being really nasty to us this year, but if we do it again, they're going to erase our entire account. So I apologize about that. We're probably not going to post this week's event. Next week, we're going to try not to have the music as part of the stream. It makes it a very bland thing to watch without all of the music, but at least you'll be able to get to watch the matches and listen to the commentary. So we're trying to come up with a way around that. It's just sort of a long, drawn-out process. All right, I just got a bazillion questions, so let me run through these just really quick. I'm not going to be able to answer all of these. I apologize. Literally, you guys just typed about 20 questions at us.
And we both have another webinar in about 10 minutes.
Yes. So that was where the event video was going to go. Where the links to the video is all about videos. Is there a way to find out which field is at which event more than a week in advance? It's pretty easy. The blue field will be in Western Washington only. It's Western Washington and the Portland Championship. The red field is the one that goes between Eastern Washington events and Oregon events. So that's probably the easiest way to think about it. One thing not documented about the district rankings, how many teams go on to Oregon, how they are chosen, and how many Chairman's Award. Everybody who wins Chairman's Award goes to the district championship, and the rest of it is all based on ranking points. So that's easy. It is actually documented. I agree it's hard to find. We'll see what we can do about fixing that. I think the website needs to be updated, Glacier and Oregon dates to March 3, not 2, assuming they haven't happened yet. I don't know exactly what you're asking, Sue. Okay, I'll look into that. The person doing the website is not terribly well versed at first. What about the Red and Blue Alliance websites also use YouTube? Sorry, I thank you everybody who's suggesting ways to work around YouTube. I appreciate it. We're good. We're aware of all of the options and none of them are good. Is first letting teams present chairmans at every event this year? Yes. Susan wants a second to talk. Okay, Susan, you're coming in.
Hi there. Well, while we've got all the volunteers on the line and you're previewing the questions, I just want to send out a nagging reminder that we are digitally signing our consent and release and conflict of interest forms in your volunteer account, and that needs to be done prior to arriving at your first event. So, you go to volunteer.firstlaw.org and log into your account, and right on that home screen page, you can sign your consent and release form by just clicking the link. If you have a job that requires it, you will have a second link that will be a conflict of interest form. Not everybody will have to sign that. So you may have one link, you may have two links. You just have to do it one time per season, and you'll be done. And I won't nag you anymore. That's it.
Thank you. All right. And then I've got a couple of other questions that popped up. Lindsay, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Lindsay. We can hear you.
Oh, you can?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Did you need me?
Oh, you had your hand, your question hand is up. No questions?
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, everyone.
I'm going to mute you again. There we go. All right. And I think Mike already answered. And David, are you done? Your hand is raised.
Done. I'm done. My hand should be back down now. Oh, wait.
Oh, I'm slapping your hand. There you go.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Well, hey, this has probably gone on long enough. I hope you found this useful. I know that everybody stuck with us the whole time, and we really do appreciate that. The Washington First Robotics and the whole Northwest District is getting an extremely good reputation around the entire FIRST community, and a big part of that is the amount of effort that you all are putting into this, and we really appreciate your willingness to expend so much time with us. We're having a huge impact on the lives of thousands or tens of thousands of students this year. We're actually going to probably affect at least 12,000 FRC participants this year, and another 5,000 or 6,000 FLL participants this year, and that is really an amazing thing. And we know how much effort you're putting into this, and there's just no way for us to express our amazing thanks and gratitude for everything you're doing. With that, I have another presentation to start in 5 minutes, so I should probably go work on some slides. Thank you all, and we will see you at the next event.